How does Amelia Banks, an orphan, confront the fate of being rejected by her beloved Ryan and banished from her pack after losing her parents? How will she survive in a harsh world and uncover the secrets behind her becoming a rogue? Join our pack. Subscribe to start your adventure. Chapter 1. Life has always been mean to me. I guess Tracy, a bitch from my ex-pack, was right when she said I was a big load of bad luck. And that was why I always got my happiness snatched away from me. I became an orphan at the age of 13. Before that, life was the best. My parents loved each other and together they showered me with so much love. There was never a day Amelia Banks wasn't given the best of the best. My dad was a warrior at my ex-pack, the Rivers Pack. He was a strong warrior, being that he came from a lineage of warrior wolves. His death was an ice-chilling stab in the heart. I can still remember the day his dead body was brought back and burnt in front of my mother and I. It was a law to always set dead pack members on fire as a way of laying them to rest. After burning, the ashes were gathered and given to the family members to do as they please. He died an honorable death, protecting his pack from an enemy attack. It was a war the Rivers Pack won, but at the cost of so many warriors. My mother followed 4 weeks later. She remained mute after my father's death, refusing to talk to anyone. Not even to me, her precious daughter. She barely ate and never went out. I tired to get her to come out or even talk to me. I knew she was grieving, but I was grieving too. The day she finally talked to me, I thought the sun had finally come back to my life. I didn't realize it was going to be our last conversation. "Honey, I love you so much, you know that, right?" she asked me, smiling. "Yes, Mom, I know you love me the best." I felt relief wash over me because that was the first time she smiled since my father died. "And you know I also love your father, right?" "I know, Mom. Amelia, I can't stay here anymore. I've my baby girl, but I can't take it anymore. I'm leaving, Mom." "No, Mom, please don't leave me. You don't know how much I've been forcing myself. I can't hold on anymore." That was when I finally noticed the knife in her hand. Before I could do anything to stop, she hurriedly stabbed herself in the chest, directly over her heart. She had done that cause she knew it would be a sure death for her. I was stunned. My mother had chosen my dead father over me. She would rather be with him in death than to stay with me, their only daughter. How did she expect me to survive? She was so selfish to leave, and to make matters worse, she had to kill herself right in front of me. Was that something you would do to the daughter you claim to love? I had to grow up in the Pack's orphanage, surrounded by cheerful faces of children who drew me out of the trauma I was dying in. Life was good. Though I didn't have anyone my age at the orphanage, I was happy because of the children. The other young Pack members stayed away from me as rumors spread that I was nothing but bad luck. Anytime they saw me approaching, they would run away like I was the devil himself. The only time they tolerated it was when we were at school. That was only because they didn't want to anger the teachers. You might be wondering why I ended up becoming a rogue. Well, I'm getting there. I've been a rogue for the past 3 years since my lovely alpha mate decided to kick me out of our pack. We usually identify our mates when we reach the age of 20. I had always had an attraction towards Ryan, but I knew there was no way we would be together. He never once even looked at me. He was in love with Beth, one of the pack warriors who had been training since she was just a pup. He believed he needed a strong woman by his side. He didn't see me as anything but a weak little pack doctor. The warrior blood I had in me was for waste because I hated violence, so I refused to become a warrior. I know my ancestors would be disappointed in me, but I was happy taking care of sick and injured pack members. 3 months before my 20th birthday, just happened to be Ryan's birthday as well. The whole pack was in a celebration mood because our alpha decided to retire early and give way for his son Ryan. I was happy too because I thought I was finally going to find my mate. I was happy because I thought I would finally get to start a family of my own. But bad luck came after me again. The day of the big party arrived. The alpha stepped down and handed the mantle over to his son. Everything was going well until Ryan's eye collided with mine during the party. I was on my way to congratulate him for becoming the alpha when our eyes collided. His sweet divine smell hit me suddenly. I was happy but scared at the same time because Beth was right next to him. Before I could say anything, he opened his fucking mouth and said the most hurtful words. "I, Alpha Ryan Carter, reject you, Amelia Banks, as my mate and Luna. I do not need a weak female beside me. I want a strong woman who will stand as my equal and bear me strong pups. Beth will forever be my Luna." Everywhere was silent. There was nothing I could do but accept his rejection. His parents were not happy and disagreed. They tried to talk to him out of it, but he didn't change his mind. Beth looked at me mockingly like she had won the whole world. Some people looked at me with pity while others laughed at my situation. I ran from the hall that day and began my mission to avoid him. Our bond faded immediately after I accepted the rejection, so it wasn't so bad. On the day of my birthday, Beth announced she was pregnant. Ryan was so happy he told her to request for anything at their celebration dinner. "I want you to banish Amelia Banks." And then she began sobbing, "Staying here, she's not hung but a danger to my pup and I. And besides, she works at the Pack hospital. She could easily hurt me whenever I go for checkups or even when I would have the baby." I was surprised she would do that. I mean, I never did anything wrong to them. Yes, sometimes they both caught me staring, but that was all. I didn't have it in me to hurt anyone. Beth was a warrior, for goodness sake. How was I going to even harm her? I expected anyone to stand up for me, to say something in my defense. To say something reasonable that would help dispel her stupid words, but that was just my wishful thinking. Ryan did not hesitate as he banished me immediately and asked me to be escorted out. I begged and begged, but no one could help me. He said it was for the best anyway, so I wouldn't hurt his pregnant mate. As if I could even hurt anyone. 3 years now and it still hurts. But I'm trying my best to survive. I'm trying to be happy for myself and for my dead parents. I tried not to think about him too much, but once in a while I would think of him and cry myself to sleep. Chapter 2. Even though my life was filled with lots of bad luck, there were also moments of great joy. Like right now. My trap caught a fat rabbit that I happily roasted beside the river bank. It would be enough for 2 days. All I needed was some fruits to balance my diet. Even though I was now a rogue, I stuck to a life of eating balanced diet. I didn't eat just meat. I ate a ton of fruits as well. I had made a couple of rogue friends, but the 2 I regarded as family had disappeared 5 months ago. Ben and Tom had both found me few days after I had been banished. They took me in after they heard my story, and told me they have been rogues since birth, but unfortunately lost their parents. We were a little family for the last 3 years before they randomly disappeared 4 months ago. Even though I didn't want to admit it, I knew deep down they were never coming back. They had left me behind and gone ahead to search for a new home for us, leaving me behind for my safety, but they never came back. The first few weeks I was devastated. I tried searching for them, but it was to no avail. I didn't even know the direction they went to. I gave up searching after a while and focused on surviving with the knowledge Ben and Tom impacted upon me. I tried as much as possible to avoid feral rogues. Feral rogues were wolves who have lost their mind and had no control over their actions. They were mad wolves that attacked anyone and anything in their path. I wouldn't even last 30 seconds if I ever ran into one. "I want to go for a run soon," my wolf happily told me. I was thinking the exact same thing. "Wolfie, we should wait and eat first for more energy." "Wolfie, you don't have to worry, we can just have a short run first. What if someone steals it before we come back?" "Oh, that true," I sighed. "But I am totally itching for a run." I got up to take my clothes off. I don't have much clothes anyway, and I wouldn't want to rip the few I had and end up walking around naked. I could also just walk around in my wolf form continuously, but nah. "There's someone here," my wolf said, forcing me to listen closely. A slight rustle followed by labored breathing were the first things my ears picked up. I didn't move because I didn't really know much about fighting. Ben and Tom usually protected me from danger while I ran to hide. I heard the footsteps as they approached me. The footsteps were unsteady, telling me the person wasn't going to much danger. Thump. The person must have fallen. "Who's theirs?" I asked with a confident voice. I hoped that would scare the person a little bit. "He'll please help me," a feminine voice replied after some seconds went by. The voice came from behind some bushes just ahead. I hesitated but ended up approaching the owner of the voice. Slowly but steady, I walked until I found a woman lying there with blood all over her. Her clothes were torn in different places with large and small injuries all over her body. "Oh my God, what happened?" I rushed up to her. Thank God she ran into a doctor like me. I used my medical knowledge to check over her. The injuries were very bad. She needed urgent treatment or she was going to bleed to death. The bite and tear marks all over her body were wide and thick and were continuously oozing blood. I tore the sleeves of my top, tying up the worst injuries to reduce the amount of blood she shed. I wandered off from my pack. Got attacked by a feral. Please help me get to my son. How could you wander out of your pack? Don't you know how dangerous that is? This wasn't the right time to admonish her, but I couldn't help myself. This woman was on my list of the most foolish people I've ever met. I know, but I just wanted to end it all. I don't want to stay here anymore. My heart is bleeding. She begins to cry and I'm left confused, but before I could do anything I was attacked. Oh, I think I get in now. She must have wanted to kill herself, but then the feral attacked her. Why didn't she let the feral finish her off then? Didn't she want to die? Women. Okay, where do you need to go? I replied hurriedly. I really hope she wasn't from a dangerous pack because my senses could tell she had Luna abilities. I really didn't want to go to a pack, but I couldn't leave her here to die. Take me to the New Moon pack. Please, I beg of you. I took a step back when I heard the name. I knew that pack. I knew they were dangerous. I hated packs, especially those filled with bloodthirsty warriors. There were rumors all over the forest about how they never let go off rogues spotted around their border. You didn't even need to cross into the border before they attacked you. Just being around the border in the first place gets you killed. Wouldn't they just kill me if they found not only me but an injured woman with me? What if they assume I was the one responsible? I know you're scared, but please, I really need your help. I didn't want to put myself in danger, but I didn't want to leave this woman here. Leaving her here means death. She would either bleed to death or get attacked by some dangerous animal. Even if she tried to get to her pack, she wouldn't be able to make it. Let's get her there and make a run for it. My wolf made the decision for me. Fine, but you have to assure my safety, I said, finally compromising. I prayed in my heart, hoping this decision doesn't lead me to death. Don't worry, I'll make sure no one hurts you. I hope you keep to this promise. Don't worry, dear. I swear on my life, I won't let my son or anyone hurt you. I found my way through the forest as I tried supporting the woman. About 60 of her weight was being supported by me too high. She managed to drag her feet as we walked. She was getting weaker by the second and I tried my best to pull her with me. I knew we were almost there. I could sense the pack territory just further away. We walked for the next 30 minutes until I heard footsteps running towards us from the direction of the pack. I figured they had most likely sensed her since we were already about to cross the border. Mother, I heard someone scream. I could understand because this woman looked horrible. It took us a long time to get here with the situation she's in. Help me, she mumbled before she suddenly slumbed against me. I knew this situation just turned horrible, because she wouldn't be able to explain to them, and I'll be stuck here till she wakes up. I didn't want that. Drop my mother, you filthy rogue, a voice boomed in the forest. My wolf cowered back and I immediately dropped her as my body obeyed the alpha command. No. This wasn't the plan. No, please wake up, please. I wasn't the one who harmed her. I found her like this. I went on my knees pleading. Please, you have to believe me. She was the one who begged me to bring her here. Shut up, you filth. Did I ask you to talk? His eyes were already black, showing how enraged he was. He wasn't going to listen to me in his current state. You injure my mother and bring her here hoping I would extend my hands and reward you. I hurriedly shook my head, tears streaming down my face. This couldn't be happening to me. Guards. He yelled, drag her into the pack and lock her up. When I'm done, I'll come for her. He scooped his mother into his arms, and off he went with the only person who could save me. I'm dead. I'm going to die because I saved someone. Why? Why me? I should have left her alone, then I wouldn't have to suffer this injustice. Chapter 3. I looked around the smelly cage I woke up in. The cage was so small I couldn't even sit up in it. Maybe I had been given this cage as punishment since I initially tried to run. After the alpha had taken his mother away, I noticed the 2 guards who had walked up to me. They were the ones he had ordered to drag me in. I attempted to run, but one of them easily pinned me down. I pathetically thrashed and begged for them to let me go, but all I got in return was laughter followed by a blow to my head. That blow rendered me unconscious until just a few minutes ago when I woke up and found myself in this cage. My body was in pains. It was obvious the bastards had beaten me even while I was unconscious. So barbaric. Those guards were so wicked. They could have put me in a bigger cage, but no, I was kept like an animal in a smaller cage. The cage had no coverings. Up to down it was made with silver rods. The only place covered was the bottom, and I was glad for that. If this metal sheet wasn't here, my body would been lying on silver rods. The night was chilly as the moon stood proud right on top of me. I was chained up with silver and placed in a silver cage. They're so mean. The injuries I sustained from the beating were healing too slow. This was definitely the fault of all the silver around me. Footsteps had me struggling to turn around. Standing a few meters away from me were two teenage wolves. "You're so going to die, bitch. Our alpha will make sure of it," one said when she noticed my eyes on them. "Just take a look at her. So miserable. She's lucky the pack doctor was able to save Alpha's mother," the other added. "But she's so tiny. Are you sure they caught the right person? She was the only one they found with her, so it was most likely her." That's true. But whatever. It's none of our business anyway. Even if she's not the one responsible, Alpha is not going to let her go. She was the one stupid enough to come here in the first place. I couldn't help but wonder what they were doing outside this late. They were either asked to check on me or they were patrolling, but then again, were teenagers allowed to patrol? Their voices eventually faded away, and once again I was all alone. Tomorrow I was going to suffer. My mind wandered off thinking of all the damage they would inflict on me tomorrow. Eventually I fell asleep. Despite the condition I was in, I had the loveliest dream. I was back at my old pack with my parents. We were in the kitchen baking cookies. Dad kept messing up the shapes and licking the dough, but Mum never scolded him. She would just shake her head and laugh. I missed them so much. "Wake up, bitch," someone yelled as a bucket of hot water was poured all over me. I screamed at the top of my lungs until I couldn't anymore. My throat felt painful and dry. I laid down whimpering and staring the crowd in front of me as tears fell from my eyes. Were these people blind or stupid? How could they think a little shrimp like me was capable of harming their previous Luna? Oh wait, even if I wasn't responsible, I was still a rogue, and this pack hated rogues. They saw rogues as dirt beneath their feet. They were no one I was going to be saved unless that woman wakes up. Would she even care? She was back home already, and it wasn't like she didn't know what happened to rogues around here. "Open the cage and pull her out." I recognized that voice. It was the Alpha. He was finally going to kill me. My wolf was surprisingly content with death. Even though she never said it, I knew she had been empty since our mate rejected us. Would death really give us the relief we crave? I was pulled out of the cage and left with my stomach on the ground. Before I could even arrange myself, I felt searing hot pain across my back. The pain didn't stop. The whipping continued when I begged and screamed my innocence. My throat that was already in pain was subjected to more pain. I'm innocent, I screamed, but nobody believed me. The chains on my legs and hands were being pulled in the opposite direction. I couldn't even evade. By the time the whipping ended, a crowd had gathered around to watch. My senses, even though disoriented, could identify that they were all warriors. I hoped they weren't going to inflict more damage. I hoped these warriors weren't going to hurt me one after the other. I would die even before they finished. "Good morning, New Moon warriors." "Good morning, Alpha." The reply was so loud my eardrums almost bled. "I would like to introduce you all to our new practice material. I don't care how to use her, but make sure you don't kill. I don't want any sexual relations with her to avoid the risk of her getting pregnant. You can do anything else. I am going to spend some time with my mother." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This Alpha was by far worse than Ryan. Ryan never abused, but this guy right here is turning me into a pack punching bag. A punching bag for warriors. Also, none of you are allowed to kill her. Whoever dares to kill her will have me to answer to. Do I make myself clear? Yes, Alpha. Why couldn't he just kill me like I expected? By the end of the day, my precious hair was completely shaved off. I was stripped naked and left outside for all to watch. The chains on my hand and legs were attached to a pole. Another chain was used as a collar and tied around my neck. I wasn't beaten though. Maybe because I was already covered in blood, they decided to leave me for today. I was tired. I was hungry. My injuries were not healing properly. I knew werewolves could survive about a week without food, but I doubt I would in my condition. I couldn't believe this was my punishment for helping that woman. She was the one wandered off in the first place. She was also the one who wanted to die. She should have let the pharaoh kill her. From what I had overheard, she was now in a coma and nobody knew when she would wake up. Her body had probably shut down from the blood loss. Why? Why did she have to fall into a coma? Why couldn't she just hold on a little bit? I honestly preferred death to the kind of suffering I was going to endure. Wasn't I just like them? I was a werewolf too, rogue or not. I deserved a home, a roof over my head. I had never done anything to deserve this. I missed my home. My old pack. I missed going to work and just chilling. I missed my mate surprisingly. I missed ranting beside my patent's grave. Why did they leave me alone in this wicked world? Chapter 4. I have no idea of how long I've spent here. I tried counting the days at first, but then I couldn't keep up because I kept going unconscious at random times. I am tortured regularly until I am at the point of death. I am only alive because sometimes the pack doctor is asked to help treat me a bit. Some days I was thrown leftover food. At the beginning, if I refused to eat, and so they would shove the food down my throat because they didn't want me dying so soon. Eventually I began eating the leftovers whenever they were provided. Still, no matter how much I told them I had nothing to do with the woman's injuries, they never believe. They would just laugh at me and hit me more. Worse of all, that woman refused to wake up from her coma. One faithful day, the Alpha decided I was not suffering enough. He decided to assign a pack doctor to give me a daily dosage of wolfbane, and whenever I was to be whipped or cut, he made sure the inflictors were given silver whips and knives. My body was littered with injuries of various shapes and sizes. Sometimes the teenagers would even carve shameless words on my body with razors. Some would even sneak up to me in the middle of the night just to touch me sexually and masturbate beside me. These people were so sick. How could you enjoy masturbating to a seriously wounded person? Whenever the pack got a visitor, I was thrown into the underground cellar. My wolf rarely appears anymore. Every time I try to talk her, she never replies me. I knew she has been weak since our mate rejected us, but this abuse has pushed her over the edge. I just wish that damn woman would wake up already. Hey rogue, get up, a she-wolf snarled at me. I could tell she was the Alpha's mate, but I had no energy, so I couldn't even respond. She enjoyed tormenting me daily along with her clique of wolf Barbies. Bitch, I'm talking to you, she said as she slammed her legs against my stomach. I didn't mean to, but I ended up releasing everything in my stomach all over her legs. It was bile and water though, but that made her jump away from me while shrieking like a dying pig. What have you done to my mate, you pathetic thing? The Alpha appeared out of nowhere and snarled at me. I didn't even move, I just blinked at him. I think that must have enraged him, cause next thing I knew I was kicked into oblivion by the Alpha. The next time I woke up I wished for death to take me away. I was nailed to a wooden cross stake. There was a silver nail driving through both my bleeding palms. My neck was chained tightly to the stake, which caused my head to remain upright. My legs were also chained to the stake. This was the worst pain I have ever had to endure. I began to sob. I sobbed for hours. At some time there was a crowd of people throwing tomatoes and eggs at me. Even the little kids laughed as they joined. I couldn't understand how a whole pack could be so cruel that even the kids were comfortable with something like this. This pack was breeding demons. A while later, I heard the sound of a moving vehicle approaching us. Everyone immediately went quiet as they stepped away. I couldn't help but wonder who that was to make all these demons step away like they weren't just being evil. Oh my God, what is the meaning of this? I heard a female voice say as a car door opened. I heard my aunt was finally awake and the rogue responsible was going to be killed, but I didn't accept this. It was a male this time and I could tell he was angry. A brother, it is what she deserves. Even after trying to kill my mother, she tried to kill my mate too, the Alpha said. I just kept shaking my head. Was the bastard there watching me suffer all this while, or did he just come? But this is too much, Carl. Where's Aunt Elena? My mate has gone to get her. She'll be here soon and then we'll take care of this bitch. I tuned out of their conversation as soon as I heard I was going to be taken care of. Taking care of me could be translated to killed. Finally this pain would end. It felt like 20 years has passed already and I can't wait for it to be over. Finally. Death is finally coming to free me. I stretched my lips into a small smile as silent tears fell from my eyes. A shocked gasp was suddenly heard, followed by the sound of a hand connecting with a surface I am sure is going to be a face. How could you do this to her, Carl? She saved my life and this is how you repay her. The bitch who put me in this condition was finally here. Mother, what is the meaning of this? She is the reason you were in a coma, you fool. I walked out into that forest all on my own. I was tired, I just wanted to be away. I initially wanted to, but then I was attacked by a feral rogue. So she didn't know how to tell the complete truth. I managed to injure it before running away. I ran into her and then she saved me. Nobody moved. They all stood shocked over the mistake they have made. My naked body soon began shivering and my breathing was getting labored. I felt their eyes turn to me when they heard my labored breathing. Carl, look what you've done. You blamed an innocent wolf for something a feral did. I heard her hit him again. What are you still doing there? Get her off that place, you fools. I didn't know what happened next because I felt so numb. I could hear Elena crying though. She kept saying she was sorry, but her voice irritated me. It was all her fault. If I had enough energy, I would have killed her right there and killed myself along with her. What right did she have to cry and act like a good person? While she laid inside in peace, I was dying. While she was allowed to heal in comfort, I was here suffering in the hands of her pack members and son. I should have left her to die, then I wouldn't be in this predicament. The only innocent person here was me. She, her son and her whole pack were nothing but demons. Chapter 5 Adam's POV. Growing up, it was an established fact that Carl was a hopeless idiot. No matter how much he was educated, the idiot always failed to use his brains in critical situations. It was a secret Carl didn't know about, but his father and mother had hoped for another child, but sadly their wishes were not fulfilled. They had already known for years that Carl was unfit to be an alpha. He lacked the qualities needed. Despite all his faults, his parents loved him still, so they were ready to spend their lives supporting him. Sadly, his father's death came unexpectedly. Carl was made alpha and his mate Luna. His mother was too sad to care about anything, and this led Carl and his mate to act rampantly in the last year. New Moon Pack had always been known to be brutal to rogues, but not to the point of unnecessary torture. The pack had always been more focused on getting rid of feral AMD criminal rogues. But Carl in his 1 year of leadership had turned the pack into a pack of mindless killers. They attacked, tortured and killed every rogue they stumble across. There was news of them even venturing into no man's territory just to arrest rogues. I blame Aunt Elena for being so absorbed in her pain. Now Carl had gone ahead to torture the innocent rogue who was kind enough to rescue his mother. When he informed me yesterday, I tried to imagine the rogue who was fearless enough to attack New Moon's ex Luna. Part of me thought Carl was bluffing, while the other part thought it might have been for revenge. Stepping down from the car, I was disgusted at what Carl had done. The rogue had been stripped naked and nailed on a fucking wooden stake. Her body, despite covered in what looked like eggshells and tomatoes, had injuries of various sizes all over her body. She was bleeding from different places and the ground below her was covered blood, eggs and tomatoes. The pack members were standing away with smug looks on their faces. I argued with him at such inhumane treatment, but he seemed to believe it was the right thing to do. The look of shock on Biff's face when his face after Aunt Elena's slap and revelations was stuck in my head. Mother, I am so sorry. I stood with my arms crossed watching Carl as tried to reason with his mother. The glare she returned was proof of how mad she was over the issue. Carl tried to place his hand on his mother's shoulder, but she slapped his hand away. Don't touch me, you ignorant fool. She looked around at the pack members who stood around watching the drama. As soon as she wakes up, I'm taking her and leaving this place, Aunt Elena snarled angrily before turning to walk away. Rachel followed right behind her, trying to keep up with Aunt Elena's fast pace. I knew where Aunt Elena was heading, the pack hospital. When the girl had been brought down from the wooden stake, Aunt Elena had called on the pack doctors to rescue her. With reluctance on their face, they tried convincing my mother to just let the girl die. Aunt Elena, possessed by rage, attacked the pack doctor who had been the leader of the refusal. Her reaction was enough to push the others to work. Before taking the girl to the hospital, they had tried stabilizing her. With Aunt Elena's departure, the pack members began to go off in different directions with depression clouds hanging over their heads. They were all stupid in my opinion. I wondered how they sat all through what Carl had been doing to the girl, especially the elders. Then again, the pack was turning into a bloodthirsty one, so it was most likely they all enjoyed and took part in the girl's torture. I'm disappointed in you. I walked closer to Carl. Why didn't you just lock the rogue up until Aunt Elena was awake? I asked. I was so angry at him. He ran his palm over his face. I thought it was her. I was so stupid. I should have realized she was too weak to attack my mom, but I was angry. Seeing my mother in that horrible state clouded my vision. He paused. I decided to pour out my anger on the first rogue I saw. I didn't stop to think of the probability that she was just helping Carl. No matter how much she begged, I refused to listen. My mother will never forgive me. Even my dead father will never forgive me. He hung his head in defeat, and all I could do was shake my head at him. Babe, you don't have to feel so bad. Your mum will come around once that bitch gets better or dies. She was just a rogue anyway, his stupid mate Ashley said. I was dumbfounded. I knew my cousin's mate was a bitch from the first day I met her, but this was a whole different phase. Ash, don't say something like that, the idiotic cousin of mine says, still looking lovingly at her. I was glad my mate didn't have to see this kind of shit. I bet she would have gone into immediate labor. But it's the truth. The bitch was a rogue, she didn't deserve to live in the first place. Yeah, I guess so. Along with Carl's stupidity, Ash was just a toxic mate. She gave nothing bad advice, pushing Carl more and more into the abyss of no return. My mother is just overreacting. She'll get over it. It's not like I did a bad thing anyway. The girl was a rogue in the first place. What was I supposed to think? And just like that, Ash helped in eliminating his guilt. Exactly, babe. Ashley smiled at him. Carl playfully growled at her, and then they proceeded to start a make-out session. You both disgust me, I growled at them while walking away. I could hear them sucking each other's faces off, and it just made my blood boil. They both almost killed an innocent girl, yet they felt little to no remorse. Carl was going to drive this pack to dust, and Ash was going to be his biggest supporter. Arriving at the Pack hospital, I traced my sister's smell up to a hallway. I found my aunt crying while Rachel comforted her. Aunt Elena's shoulders were vigorously shaking from her intense crying. The last time I saw her crying like this was when her mate was buried. Anyone could tell she was really hurt by Carl's actions. It's all my fault. I should have just told her to leave me alone to die. I should never have gone out of Thai territory in the first place. Look at what he did to her, he even had cut off her hair. The bastard drove a silver nail through her palms. I can see all the injuries on her body. I can see she has suffered. Aunt, why don't you go start packing your stuff so we can leave after the doctors are done? Leaving her here with Carl and Ash still parading as Alpha and Luna was not a good idea. Those two would find a way to kill her off. Aunt Elena was reluctant, but after much persuasion she left with Rachel. Knowing I needed permission since I was going to bring a rogue over, I decided to contact my Alpha. That's an unexpected request, I heard, like let out a sigh over the phone. Adam. You're my beta and I trust your decision, so I give you my permission. Luke, never one to disappoint. Thank you, Alpha, but I expect a detailed explanation when you return. I'll be at the office first thing tomorrow morning. I'll be waiting. By the time my aunt finished packing, the doctors walked out of the emergency room. They had successfully removed a large potion of the silver and wolf bane. I requested for an ambulance as well as one of the doctors who attended to her. The doctor would be useful when reporting her condition to the doctors back at home. Aunt Elena did not even wait to say goodbye to her son. She put her clothes in my truck and got into the back of the ambulance to accompany the girl. After 2 hours of driving, we finally got home. This day has been so shitty, all I wanted to do was cuddle with my mate. Chapter 6. Good morning. Luke greeted me as he walked into the office. Just like I promised, I got here early this morning. Standing up, I greeted him in return. So what's the whole story with that girl? Luke asked. I got a report from the Pack doctor this morning, and she informed me the girl's condition is pretty bad. My cousin is a sick fuck man. Luke chuckled. That's an established fact. In all the years of his life, this mistake is by far greater than all his previous ones. Luke sat down, sensing the story was getting serious. Carl was stupid enough to capture the wrong rogue. According to Aunt Elena, she was tired and just wanted to take a walk away from the suffocating pack. She knew she crossed the territory, but she just kept walking until a feral rogue found her. They both fought and Aunt managed to injure the it long enough to get away. She said she stumbled upon the kind girl who helped her. Aunt Elena cried as she told us how reluctant the girl had initially been, but after her pleas, the girl helped. By the time they got to the Pack, Aunt was too weak and fell unconscious. The Pack attacked the poor girl thinking she was responsible. They have been abusing her for the past 2 months. I shook my head as I tried to get the memory of the girl's broken body out of my mind. Luke didn't say anything, so I kept talking and told him how she was nailed to a wooden stake and the degree of torture the girl's BPI showed. That's terrible, Luke growled out. When you said punished, I didn't think it would be this bad. I expected at most some beating and whipping. To make matters worse, Carl isn't feeling a shred of guilt. The little form of guilt he expressed was extinguished by his mate. I knew from the way they were talking that they would most likely try to get rid of the girl. Those two are just going to end up wrecking the Pack. Luke let out a loud snarl and I could tell he was getting angry. His eyes kept changing between gold and blue while his body shook. His wolf wanted out. I stood up with my head bowed in respect so he wouldn't see me as a threat. From the corner of my eyes, I saw Luke run towards the balcony. He jumped down and disappeared into the woods. Sorry, man. My wolf just got agitated. Abuse and such stuff is still a wake spot since I received Luke's message 5 minutes after his disappearance. I had remained standing looking outside just in case. It's okay. I understand. Are you okay though? Yeah, I'm fine. I'll be okay now that I knew he was okay. I flopped back on my seat. My heart aches for Luke most of the time. He lost his mate 5 years ago even before could be with her. We had just turned 20 when we were sent as a group to attack an illegal underground wolf ring. We found her in a cage dying. She looked so malnourished and was covered in her blood. She had smiled when Luke called her his mate. The only thing she said to Luke was her name and that she was sorry. She died in his arms and he was devastated. He totally lost control after one other captured rogue explained her origins. The rogue explained they had both been caught as teenagers and were forced to fight for their survival. Luke ran away with his mate's dead body and only came back the next day after his wolf calmed down. He buried her on the Pack burial grounds and the whole pack mourned with him. We all lost our Luna even before we met her. I was left all alone in the office and was forced to finish all the paperwork since the others were absent. I rushed home to find my mate in the living room with my sister, my parents and aunt. I was surprised they were all here because they never informed me they were coming to visit. What are you all doing here? I asked. I sat down and wrapped my hand around my mate's waist. She instantly leaned on me so I kissed her on the forehead. What do you mean by that, brother? My sister Rachel asked with an eye roll. She was a bit of a spoilt brat and always wanted things to her way. She hated it when people questioned her. My little beta is now a grown-up man. He doesn't want his mama anymore. I rolled my eyes at my mother's reply. Well, babe, your family came to keep me company since you forgot all about me, Amanda said as she played with my fingers. I'm sorry, love. You know Luke and I are the only ones currently available. We had so much to do today, but Luke lost control when I told him about what Carl did to the girl, so I was stuck handling everything. Luke lost control. How's he now? Rachel asked. Everyone knew how Rachel felt about Luke, but sadly for her, Luke never saw her the same way. Yeah, I guess he's fine now. Why did he lose control in the first place? Have you forgotten about Lucy already? Oh, I see. I still blame myself for everything that happened to her. Aunt Elena had her head down as she talked. The doctor tried their best, removing as much silver and wolfbane as possible. She was put into an induced coma so her body could get rid of the ones left in her system and so she could heal faster. I know she's never going to be the same when she wakes up. She'll most likely hate me too. Don't think too much, Elena. Everything will be fine. You'll see. Just stay positive. My mum reassured her. I'll try. Some part of me blamed Aunt Elena for what happened. If she hadn't stupidly walked away from Pack territory, none of these would have happened. I wanted to scream at her, but I knew my parents would give me a good beating, especially my dad. So I just kept my mouth shut and prayed for the well-being of the girl. I even had a feeling Aunt Elena was lying. Her eyes never looked starry-eyed at us whenever she recounted the events of that day. It felt like she was always dodging our eyes. Did she really just go for a walk that day? Why did she keep walking even after she noticed she crossed the territory? Chapter 7. The hours rolled by and became days, days became weeks, and the weeks became months. It has been 4 months since my aunt's arrival. As time went by, Aunt demanded we called the rogue girl Anna when we all kept referring to her as the girl. Amanda, my mate, finally delivered our pup, and the little monster has kept us awake for days. I had cried the first time I saw his ugly scrunched-up face. My mum had whacked me in the head for calling the baby ugly. He's just a few hours old. His face would eventually stop looking like this, so stop crying or you'll make Amanda feel bad, she had told me after pulling me out of the room with my ears. Just like she said, his features began taking shape about 2 weeks after his birth. Now he looked more like a combination of Amanda and I. In my opinion, he looked more like Amanda, but she believed otherwise. She believed he looked more like me. We even had a stupid argument over it, which ended with us accepting he looked like both of us. I was glad no other major event took place in these last months. The only eventful thing that happened was the visit from Carl. He had come hoping to get my dad's permission to take Aunt Elena back. Against his expectations, Aunt Elena and my dad gave him the beating of life before chasing him away. Today was the death anniversary of Lucy, Luke's mate. Every year on this day, he would shut himself away for the whole day. Caleb, the Gamma, and I tried to be there for him in any way possible. He would push us away, ask us to leave, but we would refuse and sit outside waiting for him to feel better. This year, however, things were different because Caleb was unavailable. Caleb had taken time off to search for his mate. He had requested for 6 months, and these 6 months would be coming to an end soon. Sadly, there has been no news of him finding his mate. This year was also different because Luke was not in his room when I went over this morning. I mind-linked him over and over again, but his barrier was up, so he couldn't get any of my messages. For hours I searched for him in the whole pack until I decided to finally sniff him out. If my eyes couldn't find them, then maybe my nose would do the trick. 30 minutes later, I found myself standing outside Anna's hospital room. What was Luke doing in here? I opened the door slowly and was surprised because the Luke I have been searching for was fast asleep in Anna's room. I walked closer to him, and after seconds of deliberation, I decided to wake him up. Luke, wake up, I whispered silently as I shook him awake. Go away, he replied groggily, trying to change his sleeping position. Luke, get the fuck up, I bent down to his face level, whispered directly into his ears. This did the trick for me. I fucking hate you. He stood up from the chair he had been sleeping on. How could he even sleep so comfortably? Come on, let's go outside. I don't want you disturbing Anna. Luke sent aggressive glares my way before marching out of the room. What were you doing in there? I couldn't help but ask once we were outside the room. I don't really remember how I got here, he said, running his hand through his hair. One moment I was in my room crying my eyes out, and the next thing I found myself here. A small smile appeared on his lips. I talked to her, Adam, and she actually listened. Okay. You know she's in a coma, right? I asked with raised eyebrows. I know, but you have to believe me, man. When I started talking, it felt like she was actually listening. Even my wolf was content. Every trace of anger disappeared and I felt at ease. I don't even remember falling asleep. Weird. But I didn't tell him that. He might have just punched my nose off. I really didn't know what reply to give him, so I just shrugged and told him good luck with a pat on the shoulder. Why were you looking for me anyway? He asked, looking at me. I was worried about you. Today means a lot to you and you, Caleb, and I would never leave you alone in your moment of pain. I wanted to make sure you were okay and keep you company. I replied sheepishly. I know he didn't like it when we watched over him whenever it was her death anniversary, but I couldn't help it. He was my friend and my alpha. It was my responsibility to make sure he was okay. You guys will never leave me alone. He looked at me with stink eyes, but I just burst out laughing. I'm surprised he didn't burst out in anger. That was his normal reaction. I came to the conclusion that after spending time pouring his heart out, he was feeling lighter. Chapter 8, Amelia's POV. For a while now, my body has felt weightless. It was like I had been floating on the clouds. The afterlife was not what I expected it to be. It was a weird thing. All I do here is float about, then sometimes I blank out. My wolf has been absent for all the time I spent here, and I really miss her company. Good morning, Anna. This was the first voice I have heard in a long time. Normally everywhere around me is so quiet. I can't see anybody around, but the voice just keeps talking. I don't really know what to say to you. Today marks the death anniversary of my mate, and it still hurts just like the first time I held her dead body. I could hear the voice sobbing and I felt some pity for him. I couldn't even get to know her. I found her on the doors of death, and the only thing I could know about her was her name. I know I'm pitiful, but I'm trying to stay strong for my family and Pack. I wish you would wake up. I heard what happened to you. It was really horrible. I'm sorry we couldn't save you sooner. I was confused because I didn't know if he was talking to me or someone else. My name wasn't Anna, and this voice was very unfamiliar. I could feel his sorrow, and I sure as hell felt a hand holding mine. What is going on? My mind once again became black before I could think further. I opened my eyes slowly to a white ceiling. So I didn't die after all. I could smell bleach and other chemicals, which only made me guess I was in a hospital. My body didn't hurt much, and it was surprisingly easy to sit up. I pulled the needles and wires attached to me off because they were uncomfortable. I looked towards the window and saw it was dark outside. I really couldn't identify where I was, but I knew I was no longer in that horrid pack. The air felt different, lighter and peaceful. I couldn't help but wonder where I was. I was forced to lie back down because I started losing my strength. It wasn't long before sleep took me away. The opening of a door was the first thing I heard when I woke up. Next I heard footsteps approaching me and I was forced to open my eyes. The guy who had entered my room was frozen in shock. "Why, you're awake," he said as he approached me. I didn't reply him, but I recognized the voice as the one I heard earlier. Now seeing him, he oozed of power. He was definitely an alpha. I studied the guy before me, and I immediately fell in love with his blue eyes. He had a button nose and pink lips that just screamed "kiss me." He was pretty tall with broad shoulders and a slim waist to match. I could tell he was an alpha. He didn't say anything and just kept looking at me. He ran his fingers through his raven black hair and his sexiness almost made me drool. His eyes glossed over and I could tell he was mind-linking someone. The doctor is on his way," he told me once he was done mind-linking, and I still didn't answer him. I just blinked my eyes at him because I didn't want to talk to anyone. He shifted from foot to foot under my stare. Nervousness looked weird on him. The sound of the door opening again forced me to tear my eyes away from the fine specimen. A petite lady wearing a white lab coat stepped into the room and flashed her pearly white teeth at me right after she greeted the alpha. "My name is Gwen and I am the doctor that was in charge of your treatment. The wolfbane and silver that was in your system was flushed out to a significant amount before you arrived. We tried to further remove another amount present at that time and we were successful. Although there was a very little amount your body needed for expel on its own. That was 4 months ago." I could tell my eyes popped out of my mouth when I heard that. "Yeah, that's right, you've been in a coma. At first we put you in an induced coma for about a month. After that your body shut down on its own to allow you to heal and now everything is back to normal. You do however have some permanent scars on your back. Do you feel any pain anywhere?" Still not wanting to talk, I shook my head saying no. "Well, we're just going to keep you under observation for a while longer just to be sure everything is alright," she said looking at me. I knew she was expecting a reply from me, but I only blinked at her. "Please excuse us," Gwen said. The alpha who I had forgotten was still present. Gwen excused herself and now I was stuck with him. "Can you talk?" he asked me, but I turned my face away from him. "Or do you not just want to?" I nodded my head at that and heard him let out a sigh. "My name is Luke Henderson and I'm the alpha of the Black Shadow Pack." I wasn't really familiar with the name, and all I could do was raise my head to look at him. You were brought here by Adam, my beta." And his Aunt Elena. At that name I couldn't help the growl that left my lips. "Whoa, calm down, Missy," I huffed and turned my face away, obviously not interested anymore after I heard that woman was here. I knew it was rude of me, besides he was an alpha, but I really upset with woman. "I guess you don't like her since she got you into that big mess. Well, I know you're a rogue and all, but I can tell you're not dangerous, so if you want to stay here for a while before you leave or stay permanently, you're free to do so," he told me while sitting on the chair beside me. I turned my head and tried to reach out to pour myself a glass of water, but he beat me to it and handed the glass cup to me. I gulped down the whole glass and I felt refreshed. "My name is Amelia," I whispered slowly while looking at his eyes. I was surprised at myself. I had not wanted to talk to him, but once he told me I could stay, I was glad. It was the least I could do. I knew he wasn't lying, I could feel it. "I finally know your name. We have been calling you Anna since we didn't really know what to call you." He smiled at me sheepishly, and I couldn't help the little giggle that escaped my lips. "Well, I don't mind, I was in a coma anyway," I shrugged. "I know you don't fully trust me, but can you tell me a little bit about yourself?" he curiously asked. I really didn't know what part of my awful life to tell him, but I knew I had to say something, so I opened my mouth. "What do you want to know?" "Anything you would like to share." I was an only child. My dad was a warrior and my mom was a cook. I remember being happy at the beginning of my life until a war broke out between my pack and neighboring one. My pack won, but along with the death of many including my dad, I heard him suck in a breath and my eyes were beginning to get teary. My mom was devastated and full wed him soon after and I became an orphan. She was selfish enough to kill herself in front of me. I let out a humorless laugh. "Amelia, it's okay, you don't have to say more," he said, but I waved him off. Life wasn't nice anymore, but I tried to live. The kids at the pack gave me a new reason to keep going. I wanted to become pack doctor and started helping studying under one of the doctors when I was 15. Everything was fine for a while until life decided to punish me again. This time I couldn't hold it in anymore and burst into tears. The pain of losing my parents and my mate all came rushing back. I'm just full of bad luck, that's why my happiness never lasts, I sobbed. Why didn't I just die? They should have just let me die. Chapter 9 Luke's POV. I had to embrace the sobbing girl in front of me. I didn't know how it felt to lose a parent, but it would be horrible, not to mention losing both at young age. It would be devastating. If I lost my parents, I don't think I'll ever be the same again. And her mother sounded a bit horrible. How could she do that to her daughter, not minding the trauma it would cause? It's okay, Amy. It's okay. You're fine now, I tired consoling her. I knew she hadn't finished the story because she talked of being in a pack, but now she's a rogue. I tried to figure out anything that could hurt her enough to leave. Did the pack chase her? Was she too hurt she couldn't bear she pain, or did she lose her mate too? Different questions kept popping up in my head. My wolf kept whining at me to hold Amy tighter, and I did just that. It wasn't long before the crying female in my arms calmed down. From her breathing I could tell she had fallen asleep. Her body was still weak after waking up, and I blamed myself for stressing her. I carefully arranged her on the bed before covering her properly with the blanket. The first time I entered the room and looked into her eyes, I was starstruck. Her big brown eyes just stared at me, and I didn't know what to do. She looked so pale and fragile, like she could break at any moment. But even with that, she looked beautiful. Oh shit, I whispered out as I remembered I forgot to inform the Beta family. Because her beauty distracted you, my wolf smirked at me. Oh hush, I said to him. He could be annoying when he wanted to be, but I loved him regardless. I walked out of the room and mind-linked the whole Beta family to meet me at Adam's house. I couldn't bring them here cause Amelia clearly didn't like Elena. I could sense it from the growl that slipped past her lips when I mentioned the name. I understood her though. If it wasn't for Elena, she wouldn't have suffered like she did. By the time I got there, everyone was already present. We said our hellos and sat down. Rachel offered me a glass of water, which I happily took. My throat felt dry and this water was much needed. I have good news and bad news for you guys. I finally told them. What happened? Amanda was the first to open her mouth. Well, Amelia is awake. I saw the confusion on all their faces. Oh wait, they don't know her real name is Amelia. Who's that? Adam asked. Anna, her name is actually Amelia. She finally woke up, that's amazing. Well, why didn't you tell us earlier? Can we go see her now? I could tell they were all happy, but I was about to burst that bubble. You can't, I told them, putting the happy atmosphere to a stop. Why not? Elena asked. I don't know how to say this nicely, but she seems to hate you, Elena. I'm sorry. When I mentioned your name to her, she was so angry, and I could literally smell the hate and anger all over her. I solemnly said to her. Her smile fell, and I didn't have a choice but to continue talking. Not just that. She doesn't want to talk to anyone. She didn't even talk to the doctor. Then how do you know her name? Rachel asked curiously. She talked to me only after I told her she could stay or leave. I think at first she thought I would keep her captive. She also told me a little about herself too. She told me about her old pack and her family. That much I can share, but I could tell her life was not easy because she went into tears before she could finish her story. I only came down here when she finally slept. I said without pausing. They all just stared at me short of words. I couldn't blame them though. It's okay, Aunt Elena. She'll come around. Amanda tried to console Elena when she started sobbing. Adam's father went up to her and hugged his sister. He excused himself and took her away. His wife was hot on his trail as the three of them left. She's an ungrateful rogue after all. What did we expect? Of course she is a rogue. Absolutely no. Rachel started to rant off, and by this point I was so mad at her. Shut up, Rachel. You have no idea what you're saying, I yelled at her. I didn't mean to yell at her, but I just couldn't take it. Why are you yelling at me? All I said was the absolute truth. You have no idea what she's been through in her life. Did you expect her to smile and thank Elena after what Carl and that pack did to her? Hell, she wouldn't even talk to anyone, not even her attending doctor. Why do you care so fucking much about the rogue, Luke? You're being weirder than usual. I know, since your mate. Rachel tried to say, but I wasn't going to listen. Shut up, Adam snapped at her, looking livid. Rachel was getting more and more disrespectful. I only tolerated her because she was from the Beta family. If it was anyone else, I would have punished her already. Rachel, it seems like you enjoy testing my patience. This is my last warning to you. Mind the way you address me. I am your alpha. The anger I was emanating forced her to her knees while the other just bowed their heads. I heard the baby crying by the corner, and knowing he was affected by the pressure, I calmed down. You all know nothing. All rogues are not horrible. You have no idea what they've been through. Put yourself in their shoes for once. Most of them suffer unjustly. I stood up, said my goodbyes, and left. I couldn't sit there and listen anymore. Adam and his mate looked disturbed, but Rachel had a whole look of anger on her face. A part of me knew right there she was going to start trouble with Amelia, but the other part of me disagreed. Rachel probably won't do that. She might be annoying at times, but she would never try to trouble randomly. Stepping out of Adam's home, I changed into my wolf and run off. I needed to cool down. Don't let the story end. Subscribe to continue our wolf pack legend.